Good morning, everybody. It is again always good to see you. Hi, Todd. Great to see you too. I love making the videos that we do at the beginning. I'm such a visual person anyway, and I hope you caught the chubby dachshund wondering where it was supposed to go, just sort of dragging its belly and barking on a path. So I feel that way sometimes, like, hi, Abigail, like I'm dragging my belly and barking on the path. I love making those videos. I'll show it to you again at the end so you can see it. It's a lot of fun to work on these things, and it's always so good to be with you. Hi, Wendy, good to see you, and Kim, always so good to be with you. These Wednesday mornings are just such a breath of fresh air for me in the middle of the week, to be continuously challenged to look for the markers and the beauty of God in all things. And so that's why we gather today, to look for all of God's goodness and all of God's grace. So may God bless this time. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Luann. It's great to see you all. Being such a visual person, I've been thinking a lot about my father-in-law. And some of you who may be a part of the Prayer Partners group, sorry, something in my eye, a part of the Prayer Partners group. And if you're not, I encourage you to join. And that's on Facebook. So just reach out and I'll get you there and all of that. But I've been asking for prayer for my husband's parents because they've been going through some really tough times and moving to assisted living. And now my husband's mother has been diagnosed with very, very advanced cancer that we didn't see coming. So actually later this week, she's going to be moving to hospice care. Hi, Deb. And her husband, Roger, will need to move from the apartment that we just moved them into about, what has it been, 11 days, 10 days ago, to a different apartment to be with her. And some of the stuff, anyway, this is really complicated. But what really makes it complicated from another angle that I've been learning about is that my father-in-law, Roger, is visually impaired. And his visual impairment came along much later in his life, like it was caused by an infection. And it's very, very hard for him. But he never got things like OT or any kind of therapies to help him manage his visual impairment. He's just had the care of his lovely wife, my mother-in-law, to kind of guide him through life. But there's something else that he uses. So I should explain. Roger can see sort of shapes and colors and light or dark. So he can see a few things. So like when I see Roger, I walk right up to him, to his face, really, really close. And like a good retired pastor that he is, he holds out his hand and I put my hand in his, yes, even during COVID, because that's just kindness right now. And hi, Kendra. And he says, is this Diana? I mean, we could be like right there. And I say, yes, hi, Roger, it's Diana. And he's also hearing impaired. So it's actually more like, yes, hi, Roger, this is, you get it. And then he smiles when he realizes what's in front of him and who's with him. So I've been thinking so much about how hard it is for Roger to adjust just in this way, in moving to a new facility, a new apartment, and away from a house he's lived in for 30 years. And now he's going to move again. And I think we're going to need to be very careful. So I couldn't sleep last night. I was strategizing what's most important for Roger. What are his touch points? And let me explain this. So when we moved him the first time, we learned that some things in Roger's life are extremely important. They're the markers that help him find his way. And one of them is a red coffee pot. There's another piece that goes with it. This is not a picture of the exact one, but it's similar. It's from Finland, because they're Finnish. And this red coffee pot is one of Roger's markers. And so although he can only really see it like this, it needs to be on the top of the refrigerator. And if this red coffee pot is on the top of the refrigerator, then he can find his way to the fridge. And then his medication is on the top of the fridge. And so these are like these blurry and difficult markers that Roger needs to find his way. If this photo is bothering you, I'll back up so it feels better. You're going to be checking your glasses yourself. But he's looking for these things to help kind of guide him so he understands where he's going and where he is. There are other really important markers in Roger's life. For instance, there's this one really big, giant, shiny lamp that I thought, oh my gosh, we're taking this to assisted living, and now I get why. It goes by his chair. And his chair is like a tan color, so he can't differentiate it from the background, but that big shiny lamp he can, so he can find his way to his chair. There's a whole bunch of these, like a lot. And so I've been strategizing basically all night. What are the important things that we need to be sure make it to the much smaller apartment, just so Roger can figure out where he is and learn his way around. And there's a lot of strategy in helping Roger find his way because he can't see clearly. And that's not going to get better in his lifetime. During this crazy time that we have all been living in together, it is abundantly clear that a lot of things are unclear. Okay, how about the irony there? Would you agree There are a lot of things that are unclear, like who are we going to be on the other side of this? How are we going to be? Is life going to return to normal? And most people say no, normal is gone. What is going to happen next? There's so many things about our future and our planning and our lives that are unclear. And if you agree, this is a great time to type amen in the chat. Hi, Marjorie. Good to see you. Lack of clarity is troubling and disturbing to us. It's hard for us to not be able to see our way through things. Really hard. And I've been thinking about this a lot. This last Sunday, we talked about a passage from 1 Corinthians 13 there, amen, yes, Anne, that, hi, Roxy, that most of you will know because it's that love chapter. Love is patient and kind and not jealous or boastful or proud. But there's this part right after all that, yeah, Don, love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, endures through every circumstance. But then in verse 8, it goes like this. Prophecy and speaking in unknown languages and special knowledge will become useless. I don't know if anybody's feeling, hi Amy, is feeling that way. Yes, Todd, normal is fluid. Every experience changes it. And that is really uncomfortable. He's talking to the people at the Church of Corinth because they are basing their stability on the things they can do and the things they think they know. But this is what Paul says to them. Now our knowledge is partial and incomplete. And even the gift of prophecy reveals only part of the whole picture. So in other words, the people who are speaking on behalf of God and seeing the future are not putting all of the furniture in place for us to navigate our world. Do you follow me? It continues, when the time of perfection comes, all these partial things will become useless. When I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child. But when I grew up, I put away childish things. So listen what follows that. Now, we see things imperfectly, as if a childish thing was to need to see things perfectly. Now we see things imperfectly, like puzzling reflections in a mirror. But then we will see everything with perfect clarity. He continues, all that I know now is partial and incomplete. But then I will know everything completely, just as God now knows me completely. And then look how it ends. 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. I wonder if we have thought through all 3 of those words, through the work we've been doing at Coon Rapids UMC with online ministry. We have been talking about hope for months. I don't know if you caught that, but that was like 10 weeks of hope, I think. 10 weeks or more, not 8, 9, 10 weeks of hope, because we just couldn't let go of it. And now we're digging way deep into love, doing this study by Bishop Michael Curry, Love is the Way, and pressing far into love. But let's talk about this word faith for just a minute. So just like in Roger's world, where he can't see things clearly, he needs something to put his faith in. And for him, it is visible enough physical objects. And that I get. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's him adapting to visual impairment. But I'm wondering, for the unclear that we are all experiencing right now during this time, what are the things that help us find our way? Are they things? What are the markers that show us where we are and where we're going and help us feel stable in an unknown thing? That's the other thing with Roger's visual impairment. He is so unsteady on his feet. I can't believe the guy hasn't fallen more than he has, because it's just he can't orient himself all the time. And he's older. But what are the things that we're using to kind of brace ourselves, to kind of mark our path and find our stability and hopefully see what's coming next at some point so we can plan for it? It's like one step at a time needs to be visible. Are we placing our faith on things like our ability to strategize a plan? Nothing wrong with that, but maybe too much. our own abilities, our own actions, our own way of going through the world? Are we placing our faith upon physical objects or our retirement accounts or our income? Are we placing our faith in the goodness of humankind, which I would contend is probably not the best plan right now? Who or what are we trusting in? Because our vision is unclear. What are the markers that we are looking for to find our way? And what or who puts them there? Mary, you are preaching right there. Past experiences that show me I'll get through it. Yes, ma'am? I think we're done. Mary just said it. No, just kidding. We're going to continue. What are we putting our faith in? We can't see clearly. So what are the markers? What are we looking for? So I want you to watch this video. I love the Bible Project. I'm going to start donating to them because they're so helpful. This is a very beautiful video about faithfulness. I want you to watch it. It is really well done. Listen, watch.
If you tried to describe what God is like, it could be difficult or daunting. But when the people who wrote the Bible pondered the mystery of God, they consistently described God's character in this way: compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, overflowing with loyal love and faithfulness. We're going to look at this last characteristic of God. It's the Hebrew word emet, which can be translated as faithfulness or even truth. It's related to another word you've probably heard before, amen, which is an untranslated Hebrew expression meaning that's truth. So emet can mean truth, and it can refer to correct ideas or concepts. This is because emet has to do with stability and reliability, like when Moses holds up his hands for hours to defeat Israel's enemies, the Amalekites. His friends put a rock under him and support his hands so that his hands will remain emet, or steady. When emet is used of people, it describes reliable and stable character, or trustworthiness. Like when Moses appoints leaders in Israel, they're to be people of emet, people who are trustworthy, who won't take bribes or distort justice. So to say that God is full of emet doesn't just mean that God tells the truth or stands for truth. It means that God is faithful and trustworthy. This is why Moses calls God a rock, saying that he's faithful, just, and upright. He's saying that he can trust God to be consistent to his character. And the Hebrew word for trust is actually the verb form of the word emet. It's he'emin. It can be translated as to believe or to have faith, but most basically it means to consider someone trustworthy or to trust. The first person we meet in the Bible who considers God to be trustworthy is Abraham. God makes a promise that Abraham and his wife Sarah will have a huge family and that through them, all nations will experience God's blessing. But Abraham and Sarah are really, really old, and they've never been able to have any children. And yet, in the face of these challenges, Abraham he'emins God. He considers God trustworthy to open a way forward. And God does show emet to Abraham and Sarah. In just 4 generations, their descendants form a whole nation called Israel. And God invites Israel into a trusting and faithful relationship. And when God leads them out of slavery in Egypt, Israel he'emins in God. They trust and rely on him. But when they come to the land God promised to Abraham, and they find out it's filled with giant cities protected by giants, their trust in God's emet fails. But eventually, we meet an Israelite who does trust God in the face of giants. It's David. He yells at the giant, "You come with a sword and a spear, but I come with the name of the God of Israel." David consistently relies on God. In fact, it said that David walked in emet before God. So David considers God to be faithful and responds with faithfulness. This is why God promises to raise up a faithful descendant of David, whose kingdom will endure forever, or in Hebrew, have emet. This faithful king will become the source of trust and stability for others forever. But when the kingdom later collapses, the Israelites find themselves without a home and without a king. And they cry out, "Oh God, where is your loyal love that you swore to David in your emet?" They're accusing God of abandoning his promises to Abraham and to David. Is God trustworthy? Is he faithful after all? The first line of the New Testament is an answer to that question. This is the lineage of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. In other words, through Jesus, God fulfills his promises. Or as Paul says, Jesus came on behalf of God's faithfulness. He is the faithful king whose kingdom will endure forever and who invites all nations to trust God. Now, trusting anyone is risky. It's hard to know if anyone is really full of emet. But the biblical story portrays a God who's been faithful all along and whose promises were fulfilled in the story of Jesus. And so as we look out at the obstacles facing us and our world, we're invited to take that same risk and join Abraham, David, and the people of God in trusting that God is overflowing with faithfulness.
Isn't that an awesome video? It is. We place our faith not in ourselves, not in our physical objects, not in our behaviors, actions, bank accounts. None of those things will work. We need to place our faith in God, who is ultimately faithful. And Mary, as you said before, it's because we can trace the hand of God's faithfulness through history that we trust that God will be faithful in the future. When I was a kid, I was a part of a Bible study alongside my mom, which was actually an incredible blessing. It's amazing how many times I think back. It was called Through the Bible in 1 year. And we did a couple of them. Bible Truths was another one that we did. It was 2 years of study. I can't believe how often I think of that. But there's a chapter in the Bible that is called the Hall of Faith. Some people call it like the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Faith. Fame, yes, Nancy, that is true. And it's Hebrews 11, and I've never forgotten that. That was a part of my learning and my history. Hebrews 11 is an amazing passage of Scripture. Wait a minute, where is it? Faith shows, maybe it's right here. Yeah, Hebrews 11, NLT. Faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see, or maybe we see only dimly or in a blurry way. Hebrews 11 continues. Through their faith, the people in days of old earned a good reputation. And it just goes on and on. I encourage you, read Hebrews 11. It's so interesting. By faith, we understand the entire universe was formed at God's command. It was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering. It was by faith that Enoch. It was by faith that Noah. It was by faith that Abraham. It was by faith that even Sarah was able to have a child. Obviously, I'm skipping over a lot. All these people still died still believing what God promised them. It was by faith that Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice when God was testing him. It was by faith that Isaac promised blessings. Jacob, Joseph, Moses even more. It was by faith that the people of Israel, and then Rahab the prostitute, was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God. And then verse 32 of Hebrews 11. How much more do I need to say? It would take too long to recount the stories of the faith of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets. And if you're a leader at Coon Rapids UMC, then you know we talked about Gideon through emails just this week. All these people, verse 39, earned a good reputation because of their faith, yet none of them received all that God had promised. For God had something better in mind for all of us, so that they would not reach perfection without us. The Hall of Faith, yes, it is the history. It is the markers of God that lead us to see the next steps. It's not the objects like Roger needs to find things. It's the actions of people in the name of God. It is the surprises that we encounter, the coincidences that occur. It is all of these God movements and touches through circumstances, but especially through people. I've been thinking about that. If we have faith in our God and we are living within the faithfulness of God, then are we not the people who reveal the faithfulness of God? Don't our ways and our actions matter? do they become touchstones or markers or visual guides or spiritual guides for each other? When we are faithful to God, we're a part of God's faithfulness and revealing it. And we'll trust in God's faithfulness. Listen how Hebrews 11 is paraphrased by Eugene Peterson. The fundamental fact of existence is that this trust in God, this faith, is the firm foundation under everything. Look at how this is said. That makes life worth living. It's our handle on what we can't see. I think that is one of the most beautiful thoughts ever. It's not just so we find our way. It's not just so we discern our next steps. It makes life worth living, even in the darkest, most blurry, confusing circumstances and times. It's our faith in God and the faithfulness that we get to be a part of. So we need to walk by faith. This is 2 Corinthians 5:7. Not necessarily by sight. Our sight will fail us. But God's faithfulness will never fail us. Wondering, where do you see God's faithfulness? Where does the image of our beautiful, faithful, continuously loving God come in clear for you? With whom do you see it? Around what do you see it? I see it in the faithfulness of God in providing all the things we have needed and the energy of the people for Matthew 25. I see it in your continued faithfulness to show up at 7 o'clock on Wednesday mornings. I see it in how you share things with each other. If this has been helpful for you, to please share it with someone, because God's faithfulness is really, truly what helps us remember that life is truly worth living. We walk by faith, and we trust that God will give us markers that will help us see and remember the faithfulness of love that God continues to bring to us and share with us through each other. We see God's faithfulness in another sunrise this morning, and another breath of air. Hi, artist. Good to see you. I encourage you today. In fact, I'm going to play that starting video again. I want you to grab a piece of paper, or you're probably looking at your phone, start taking a note, or if you're at your computer, start writing down. Thanks, Nancy. I see it in YouTube. I see it in a big crew of people, actually. Lots of beautiful things happening because of faithfulness of God. Yep. Write down, God, I'm looking for your faithfulness today. I need to see it. I want to see it as we move along this path. Help me to see clearly, even just little things. Even if we see just little things, we need to trust that that's God's leading. So God, make those things clear to us today. Remind us and show us how you are leading, how you are growing, how you are loving. And we'll place our faith in you, even if it's not perfectly clear. And may it be so. So watch this closing video and take about, I think it's about 4 minutes, and take this time to think through all the things that you have seen that point to God's faithfulness. You could share them in the chat. It would be a great chance for us to learn from each other what the faithfulness of God is revealing to you. I could write a zillion, but I'll clog up the chat if I do. I want to see where you're seeing God. So let's spend about 3 or 4 minutes in that time. And if you have to run off, that's okay too. Spend time recounting, just like Hebrews 11 does, the goodness and faithfulness of God. And that is what will encourage you as we go forward in faith. Many blessings, everyone. Please take care. I look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy some time outside. Keep breathing, keep loving, keep praying, and keep gathering. We need to stay together. I love your comments, artists. Thank you. Even when we're enduring a narrow, rocky path through His Word and our Bible studies. So many things. Look for it. Even if your vision is blurry, I promise you it will come clear. Have a great day, everybody.